Hey everybody, how's it going? EA Bland here, and welcome back to Thrift Picks. Now, it is roughly 1:38 as I'm recording this. I just got home from watching one of the brand new films that came out this year, Dead Man's Wire, and not my cup of tea. Yeah, my review that I put on Letterboxd was actually, I'm glad it only cost me 50 cents to book my ticket. Yeah, but we're not here to talk about new movies. We're here to talk about what I've thrifted. So, for those that don't know what this show is, I started it last year, 2025, back during sort of the height, actually probably closer to 2024, when I first started collecting physical media. And the overall theme of the show is I pull some of the films from off my shelf that I've recently collected and just kind of talk about them, showcase them. Very unscripted, but there are a few key differences, or one major difference, as to what this show is going to look like throughout 2026 and beyond. Because I don't just want to talk about what I'm collecting. I want us to build a culture around film preservation, holding on to this cinematic culture, history, and heritage to continue sharing it with those that may never have been introduced to these things in the past. We take these things for granted so often, and I don't want to do that. So, before we jump into what I've got here today and what the big difference is, I want to talk about how I go about collecting when I do. When I first started, I had four main criteria that I tried to keep in mind. I always wanted to look for, number one, films that I've seen, I've loved, I knew that I wanted to have in my collection. Most people will call those day one picks. Number two are going to be films that I've watched in the past, and it's been a while since I've seen it. Maybe I enjoyed it, maybe I didn't, but, high time to kind of revisit it. If it's for $1, hey, why not? Number three are going to be films that have either been in my watch list for quite a while, maybe someone's recommended them, maybe I've seen them and it's just like, oh, I never got around to seeing that film. I'm going to pick it up. And criteria number four were going to be blind buys. Those are films that either I'd never heard of, I've never seen, or for some reason or another, I liked maybe the director or the cast. I knew somebody there. It seemed interesting enough. Maybe it had a really cool cover or design that I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to give it a try. Why not? That's led to some really interesting and obscure finds, right? And there's also, of course, been a few stinkers in there. But number five, and this was more of a supplemental area, were what I called new views. So those are films that were still either factory sealed right out the gate, or perhaps they were resealed at some point. I don't know. But I was going to give those a pickup just because it's not open. So it's probably going to be in still really good to really great to fine, right? Light new condition. And those are always really great to have if you're collecting physical media. How will things change in terms of acquisition this year? Well, number one, it starts with the terminology, where I'm no longer looking at going out and picking up new movies as purely a thrift run or thrift hunt, but an actual acquisition, right? I'm approaching my library, which is quite substantial at this point, especially for the space that I have, as a true library, a true archive. And so each new batch is a brand new acquisition. And I have a whole plan. I will go over that next week, not today, because today we're going to be focused on how the show is going to look, or a thrift hunt, but an actual acquisition, right? I'm approaching my library, which is quite substantial at this point, especially for the space that I have, as a true library, a true archive. And so each new batch is a brand new acquisition. I have a whole plan. I will go over that next week, not today, because today we're going to be focused on how the show is going to look this year. Because one of the biggest things that I noticed, there were a lot of extra features on these DVDs, some of them Blu-rays, that we definitely miss out on in terms of purely streaming, right? I'm not anti-streaming. I think streaming could be very educational. It could open the door to new ideas, new casts, new directors, stories that perhaps we might not really see or engage with in our local theaters and cinema. It's great for that. And I think if you find a film that you really enjoy and you love it, and there's a physical release for it, I think that is the moment, especially if you write a little review, you write a little note, you kind of keep that with you. You can go in and then support the work and the artist further by picking up that physical release. I think that's really, really great. Of course, there are some films that are only on streaming. They don't get a physical release, and that is also another way to keep in touch with your favorite actors' filmography, what is being produced within cinema. Now, let's backtrack. There are a lot of extras within these physical media releases that you do not get when you only stream the film and that you are missing out on. And that is what we're going to be talking about throughout this year, where as I'm going through and I'm collecting these things, I've reached the point where my acquisition has slowed to a crawl as I begin to work on cinematic educational content, guides, programming for both House on Van Street, whether it's the Weekend Watch, it's Two for the Shelves, it's the Fast Channel, free ad-supported television, or our eventual film club. Being that we're using my library as the foundation of it all, I need to start looking at it like all of the other big institutions, the museums, the universities, the private libraries and archives, the studio archives, right? Where they don't just look at the one theatrical release as the only film. No, no, no. You've got the theatrical cut, you've got the extended cut, you've got the final director's cut, you've got the audio commentaries, which are also considered their own viewing experiences. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to that in just a second. So you've got the commentaries, you've got all of the featurettes, especially if you play them all back to back, that adds up to its own little feature-length documentary, something I'm calling composite featurette documentary. You want to catalog that as its own library entry. Isolated score tracks, that's a whole nother thing. I need to start counting those. I need to start cataloging those. And that exponentially blows up the amount of films and viewing experiences that I have within my collection. So where before I started to do this, I started to add these, I use an app called CLZ Movies. My collection stood at about 3,600 films. After going through maybe around 200 films, that number jumped up to 4,000 films by, I think, maybe the first or second week of January. 4,000 films in just the span of like 2.5 weeks. So as you can see, if we just double that number, we're already looking at over 7,000 films or viewing experiences within my library. On the low end, okay? There are some here that have multiple experiences. Now, let's go back. What do I mean by viewing experience? Well, we are to consider each additional version of the film that changes the context, the experience that we have as we engage with the story as its own separate viewing experience. Example, the theatrical cut, the extended or director's cut, the director's commentary, the director and crew commentary, the cast commentary, the VFX commentary, isolated score tracks, right? Anything that is going to change the overall experience and engagement of the story. And you are missing out on all of that by only going streaming. So this is another way to, especially for me and the way that I wanted to use my library, a way to educate myself on cinema or engage with stories that I likely would never come in contact with through my day-to-day life and experiences. I'm going to bring you sort of along the journey. I'm not going to catalog everything on film, but what I'm going to do is talk about the films. I'll try to keep it down to about 10, films within a set on each episode, but what different features or experiences you can come to find if you were to go out and pick up one of these on your own. Now, with that said, let's dive in to the first one. Now, we're going to go, I've arranged everything from the same criteria as before. Ones that I love, ones that are due for a rewatch, ones that are on the watch list, and then the blind buys. Let's kick things off with one of my favorite films, Star Trek Nemesis. It was one of the first films that I found when I started collecting in the summer of 2024. And just to show you, we've got the theatrical cut on here, but special features, right? Let's count it. We've got director commentary. We've also got exclusive documentaries. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. You've got deleted scenes, photo gallery, and a few different audio language tracks. So that's a lot packed on here. So if we went with different viewing experiences, there are 2 on here if we're talking about feature length. Star Trek Nemesis. That is number 1. Now we're going to move into the first film, and I think the only one in here that I have seen in the past that I've been wanting to revisit for a while, but I keep forgetting or missing every time that I go out. That is going to be Aeon Flux, starring Charlize Theron. Got this cool holographic cover there. And this one is going to have the theatrical cut, which is widescreen. This is the special collector's edition, it says. And you've got 5 eye-popping featurettes. Now, what I tend to do is go in, double check how long each of those are, add up the time, and if it all adds up to roughly 60 minutes or more, I consider that a composite featurette documentary. It does get its own entry. It's a documentary, basically. But we've got commentary by Charlize and producer Gail and Hero. We've also got commentary by co-screenwriters Phil Way and Matt Manfredi. And that right there brings up the different viewing experiences to 3. Theatrical and 2 commentaries. And, well, we could put the featurette documentary on there. That's 4 different ways to engage with this story right here. So far we're up to, I'm using my phone, so can't, do the calculator, but I'll get the tally going down at the bottom so we can keep that going. Don't forget, if you haven't already, do subscribe, follow, comment down below, like, share, all of that cool stuff. If you subscribe here, you've got the Substack app. Don't forget that you also get the video version of this. You get the audio version if you just wanted to listen to the audio while you're on the run. And I'll also clean up the transcript and give you a nice little breakdown of what we talked about in the video down below in the post. Right now, as far as I remember, we are up to 6 different films or experiences in just 2 movies. 6 for 2. That is already quite the value added. Now we're moving into films that have either they've been on my watch list or I've seen them, never really, I've heard of them, but I've never actually watched them. Maybe someone's recommended them, or it's been so long and I just don't remember. And we're going to kick things off with a James Bond film, which I have the entire James Bond franchise up to Daniel Craig on VHS. I found all of that. My guy from Crazy Deals Thrift Shop, that's how my collection actually blew up between spring and summer of 25, called me. He's like, hey, listen, you got to get here. I've got the entire James Bond series on VHS. Half of it is unopened. Huge find. One of those we found is Moonraker. Have you seen this? I haven't. I will definitely be going through the entire James Bond franchise throughout this year, from Connery all the way through Greg. Did I say Greg? I meant Craig. You know that, right? Okay. Anyways, we got theatrical cut. We've also got audio commentary featuring director Lewis Gilbert, the cast, and crew. So that's 2 on here. We've also got Inside Moonraker documentary. We'll see how long that is. Some of them are a little shorter, some of them are a little longer. The Man Behind the Mayhem special effects documentary. 2 documentaries, 1 theatrical cut, and audio commentary. In essence, that's another 4 different deep dive viewing experiences into this film. So 6, 4, that's 10 in just 3 movies. And also a collectible making of booklet, which it did come complete. Sometimes these secondhand, finds, they don't have it, but look at that there. I'll show you that. Look at that. All right. We're going to move right along because I can now see from my peripherals that we're up to about 23 minutes, and I don't want to go over 30. So we're going to kick things off real quick over to a special edition of Stallone First Blood. I have actually not seen this. I think I might have Rambo 3 over there, but it doesn't have any additional features on that disc, so I did not include it within this set. We also get the collectible booklet inside. It's a 2-disc set, and huge extras. We've got a new documentary, Drawing First Blood, Creating John Rambo. 20 years later, the creators of First Blood recount their tales of launching David Morrell's groundbreaking novel to the big screen and developing a powerful new franchise. We've also got audio commentary with writer David Morrell, theatrical and documentary and commentary. So another 3, we're now up to 13. Moving along, we've got Gettysburg with Tom Berenger, Jeff Daniels, and Martin Sheen. Now, I've heard about this. I've seen it before pop up on like Netflix and other places. I've wanted to see it, never got around to it. Now I can. On here, we've got behind the scenes documentary narrated by Martin Sheen. We've also got vintage Oscar nominated documentary, The Battle of Gettysburg, narrated by Leslie Nelson, and commentary with director and screenwriter Ronald F. Maxwell, cinematographer Kees Van Ostrom, and Pulitzer Prize-winning author James M. McPherson, and military historian Craig Simmons. Now, I don't know if those are 3 different commentaries or if that's all in one. I'll double check that later. I'll get back to you and let you know. That's another 3 plus the film. That's 4. So 13, 4. I think we're up to 17 now. 17, and we've only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see how quickly the collection starts to build over time? Again, $20 can actually net you close to, 40 films, 40 different viewing experiences. It is mind-blowing, and it's incredible to see and sort of unfold before your eyes. Now we've got Courage Under Fire, Denzel Washington and Meg Ryan. Never got around to seeing it. I have heard plenty of great things about it. Almost dropped it. On here, bonus features is going to be director's commentary. So that's 2, 17. We're up to 19 different, we'll call them films for now. 19 in total. Courage Under Fire. We're still in things that are on the watch list. This is going to be Made, starring Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau. In here you've got Jon Favreau, Vince Vaughn, Sean Combs, Famke Jensen, Faison Love, Vincent Pastore, and Peter Falk. Now, what do we have here? We've got 3 documentaries, 2 commentaries, 3 documentaries. That's 6. 6 and 19, did I say before? 6 and 19. I think we're up to now 25. Then we're going to keep going real quick. We've got 2 more films here that I've heard before. Watch list. We've got double action feature here. We've got Schwarzenegger in Collateral Damage and Eraser. However, only Collateral Damage has commentary on it and 2 behind the scenes documentaries. So that's going to bring us up to a grand total 28 viewing experiences. Now we're going to move into the last one that I've heard of, and I just heard about it recently, so it's not something I really knew about. That's going to be John Wayne and the Cowboys, or In the Cowboys. And this one comes with commentary by the director, new cast and director reunion featurette. So we're not going to count the featurettes on here. We're only going to count the commentary. That brings us up to 28. I think that was 29, actually. That brings us up to 31. And then finally, we have the blind buy. That's going to be The Great Raid. And this one stars Benjamin Bratt, James Franco, Connie Nielsen, and Joseph Fiennes, along with feature commentary with director John Dahl and some of the crew, which now brings us to a total of, what do we got here? 31, I said. That's another 30. It's 32. If we count Eraser just as like another film within this batch, that's going to be a grand total of 30. What did I say? 31, 32, 33, 34. Yes, doing this math in real time. Please don't judge me. I'm doing the best that I can. You're gonna get the clean way down below. As you can see here, that was 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 films within this first batch, and that is actually, if we include all of the different viewing experiences, a grand total of 34 films within this batch right here. 34. $10 $10 can get you 34 different films to watch and experience. That is quite the little library, and the beauty of physical media, cinematic, history, culture, heritage, all of those different things. And I can't wait to explore all of that more with you in depth throughout this year. So that is going to be the end of this episode. Next week, what I'll be doing, I'll show you another 10 within my collection. This thing could go on literally almost for years. As I said, we were already up to about 3,600 before I started, and I've also collected another couple batches of films since then. So great year, great stuff. Next week, I'll break down what my acquisition plan is going to be for this year. That way, I'm constantly rotating new themes every month, things to look out for, things to pay attention to, where the blind spots are within the library, and go from there. That is it, folks. So glad that you stopped by. You've been watching this long. If you have, thank you so much. Can't wait to see you in the next episode. And until next time, I'll see you on the shelves. Peace.